But you're not my manager. Okay, so years ago I was working for a government facility which was undergoing a massive transition as the majority of the employees were reaching retirement age. This place only did a mass hiring to replace people once every 15 years or so. One of the new hires was coming in to replace the current training department head and was given the title of Deputy Department Manager, while he trained for the new role and prepared to take over. We'll call him Eric. Dude was the biggest prick I have ever encountered. He was constantly finding reasons to write people up and spoke down to everyone with a lesser title than himself. His first actions as a deputy manager was to change the way we did training and change the hiring process to micromanage who could get hired to this already in-depth vetting process. Job required a top secret clearance. I was a part of the class previous to these changes. Training could take upwards of 3 years to complete, and he immediately had it out for anyone from our group that didn't meet his criteria. One day, we all started getting called one by one into the training manager's office for a meeting with the department head, HR, and Eric. Now I know what's going on, as the people getting called are problems Eric has been trying to get rid of. So I pull Eric aside. Hey, Eric, I have an idea of what's happening, but just so I'm not blindsided, are you guys writing us up for something? If so, what incident? So I can make sure I know what went wrong. Eric, I'm not allowed to talk about that as per employee handbook. Only your direct manager can discuss that. And as deputy manager, I am not your direct manager. Cue malicious compliance. So I get called in the sad meeting and yep, they are writing us up and most for a thing we had already been written up for. Apparently, Eric had convinced HR that writing everyone up again for all of the offenses in a single write-up would make it easier to track. This place could only hold the write-up against you for a termination purpose for 1 year. This scheme effectively reset the clock on a lot of those previous write-ups. In my meeting was department head, HR, and Eric, with a huge grin on his face. I looked at HR, then looked at Eric, and asked HR why Eric was there. They replied, to observe. I asked, but doesn't the handbook say that only my direct manager, Chain, and HR are privy to these meetings? If so, I am not comfortable with Eric being here and would like him to leave. His demeanor instantly changed, especially since HR agreed with me and had him leave the meeting. Now, without him there, I was able to make a case as to why the new write-up was invalid and violated the handbook. Department head had no clue, or at least find it, that we had already been written up for these offenses. Ultimately, got the whole lot of the write-ups for everyone tossed out. Made myself target numero uno for this guy who eventually got me fired a couple years later, but not before I got him demoted. One morning, Eric wakes up, opens a newspaper, and he can see the hiring ad. We are looking for people who hate guts of other people. And Eric is like, yes, I was made for that. Otherwise, I cannot explain why there is this type of managers whose sole life purpose is to make everybody's else life a living heck. Y'all, we got to 200 subscribers! I'm so happy! My goal for July was to get to 250 subscribers, and we are literally just 39 subscribers away from that. Please subscribe, you will make my day. And come back tomorrow, because I release videos every day. Want all the documents? No problem. Many years ago, I did all kinds of admin work at an oil terminal. One of my jobs was to take care of all the documents after vessels had been loaded. Bills of lading would usually have to be couriered to a bank, so I would take care of that as well. Now, I said bills of lading had to be couriered to a bank, but that's not entirely true. Every time a vessel would come to load, we'd receive a document distribution matrix. originals of document X to be sent to A, copies to B, C, and D, originals of document Y to be sent to B. Well, you get the gist. I would usually completely ignore that matrix. I knew exactly who needed what, and I knew that the bank only cared about bills of lading. So I would just send them those, and that was never a problem. That is, until someone new started at said bank and would complain about missing documents. Next time, I added some more documents that I reckoned might be vaguely relevant, but again, they complained about missing documents. I am still not sure why that was, only the bill of lading was relevant to them. But the next time a vessel had loaded, I was very happy to give them exactly what they wanted. The document distribution matrix was probably once drafted by someone who didn't know what they were doing, then ignored by everyone, so it never became a problem. In this case, however, I was going to need a bigger envelope. I followed the matrix to the letter. 1 original plus 4 copies, you got it! I was really happy because I had spotted the fatal flaw. Some background first. For every chemical product, there is a material safety data sheet, MSDS. They contain all sorts of information regarding safety of product, and over time, they've become monstrosities. So here's what made me so happy. The matrix also mentioned 1 original and 4 copies of the MSDS, which was 250-page document. There is absolutely no reason why the bank would need even 1 copy of the MSDS, but it was in the matrix, and I had been told to follow the matrix. So I did. I printed it 5 times, copied all other documents 4 times, and ended up with a stack over 1,500 pages. Here's when my sadism kicked in. The 3 original bills of lading, the only documents I knew the bank actually needed, went randomly into that stack. The person on the other side would go through that entire stack to find those 3 pieces of paper they really needed. I heard nothing from them. The next time I had to send documents to the bank again, I reverted to what I'd always sent to them. Again, silence. That's when I knew I'd won. From then on, all was back to normal. Well, if I were OP, I would do this thing every time. But that's 1,500 pages every time. We do not have enough trees for this malicious compliance. Fastest readers in existence. About 20 years ago, I used to work for a mobile phone company. Cell phones for you Americans. It was in a student town in the UK. We were the 2nd selling store in the country, the top sellers being in London. We had a great team from the manager on down, around 10 of us. Could sell to anyone. If we couldn't close the sale, we would swap to another salesperson and they would have a go. Different techniques for different customers. I would get a lot of sales from the older generation, just because I took the time to sit down with them and explain exactly how the phone worked, how to text, how to make a call, etc. Remember, this was 2004. No iPhone, no touch screens. Well, around summer, we had another store cover for us as we went on a 3-day training course. They didn't tell us what it was about or anything. They put on a video for us and it was something like, "The new and better way to sell!" Audible groans were heard and one, "We should be teaching them" comment. A lot of corporate mumbo-jumbo went on this course. "With these techniques, you will sell, sell, sell." We were told what we could say and what we couldn't say to customers. We couldn't ask someone, "How are you today?" because they could be having a bad day. Couldn't say, "I'm sorry." "I'm sorry" in the UK is a phrase that you say basically for any bad news. "It's raining." "Oh, sorry to hear that." "My goldfish passed away." "Oh, sorry, mate." We had to read off a sheet and ask questions of that sheet. This is where the fast reading came in. A colleague of mine came up with it. Basically, what he would do is read through the sheet as fast as he could. He got very good at it, and within a couple of weeks, the whole store could read that sheet from memory. Bear in mind that wasn't terms and conditions sheet or anything important. It was something like, "Number 1. Greet customer using this phrase. Number 2. Find out why customer is in the store. Number 3. Did customer say yes 3 times? We had to fill out this form each time and attach it to the contract if we sold a phone. This guy got fast. I mean, he could do the shit in like 5 seconds. He would basically grab a customer and just say to them, I have to follow this shit, and show it to the customer. Then rattle through it while the customer is looking at the sheet. He would then say to the customer something like, now that I have fulfilled my obligation, then go back to what would work for him normally. That sheet lasted less than 3 months. We started printing already filled out sheets to speed things up. Throughout the company, sales went down as people weren't allowed to be themselves. It was like the ways call centers are now, run off a script. Nobody wanted to buy from a robot. We did their script, but nobody said we had to do it slow. Ooh, I can see it. Some high-level manager wakes up and he's like, well, today is revolution in sales of our company. Then he waltzes off to some department, I guess research and development, and he's like, well, you are lucky today because I present you brand new, revolutionary, never seen before, amazing selling technique. First, we have to greet the customer. And then it goes on. Entitled Hack Spawn wants my Coke, and his mother decided that ordering me to hand it over was a great idea. So I just flew back from Dubai, and I had the unfortunate luck of sitting next to an entitled mother and her woolly child. I was cursing myself because I have had terrible experiences with children in my aisles on flight, so I was already not in a great mood. The flight started out pretty smooth, but things quickly took a turn. This kid, who must have been around 5 or 6, was running up and down the aisle, throwing toys and making a mess. The flight attendants were doing their best to manage, but the mother was just sitting there scrolling through her phone like nothing was happening, or just telling people to ignore him because he's just a kid. About halfway through the flight, I ordered a Coke. As soon as it arrived, the kid zeroed in on it. He started whining and pointing at my drink, making a scene. Before I knew it, the mother was giving me these dirty looks like I was some kind of demon for not sharing my Coke with her prince. She leaned over and, in a tone that dripped with arrogance, said, he really wants your drink. Just give it to him. I was stunned. I mean, it's free, so just ask the attendant to get one for yourself? When I decided and suggested she ask the flight attendant for another one, she huffed and rolled her eyes, muttering something under her breath. I'm a patty guy, so I took my sweet time in having the drink while loudly playing music on my headphones. To spite her, I ordered another Coke, but this time her kid tried swapping the drink from the attendant's hand. The attendant scolded the mother in a quiet and stern tone to bring her kid under control, after which the mother huffed and puffed like an out-of-shape marathon runner. For the rest of the flight, she kept glaring at me like I had snitched on her to a principal, while her kid continued causing problems. It's amazing how some parents think the world revolves around them and their poorly behaved children. Why have kids why you cannot be bothered to parent them properly? I understand why the mother didn't want her kid to have a Coke, because it has sugar, it has caffeine, so he will be hyper, he will get sugar rush, then he will crash, and it will be a nightmare. Even bigger nightmare than it already is. But on the other hand, dear God, why annoy everyone around you? And again, it's not about the kid. Kid is 5. He cannot be responsible for his actions. And I understand, playing is new experience, it's exciting. But why not prepare your kid? Have a talk, get some kind of entertainment for him or something. The only thing that I didn't like from OP here is that he was listening to music really loudly in his headphones. I'm sure that he bothered not only this entitled mother and her child, but also people around them who were already bothered by that kid, and now they have music playing from his headphones, like the kid was not enough. Y'all, we got to 200 subscribers! I'm so happy! My goal for July was to get to 250 subscribers, and we are literally just 39 subscribers away from that. Please subscribe. You will make my day. And come back tomorrow, because I release videos every day. Friend faked pregnancy to be our roommate and be taken care of. I have known this friend for years, and we were close and used to spend a lot of time together after my child was born. And the end of last year, she lives in a different state. She told me her roomie, who is also her boss, was going to be closing his office and moving, and she wouldn't be able to go with him. She asked if we planned to move back and tried to say it would be a good time to buy a house, and it would be good if we could move in together. Myself, my husband, our 8-year-old, and her. Also asked if I could get her a job with my workplace. I told her we were never moving back. Worst time to buy a house. Cannot get her a job because she isn't in the same profession and doesn't have the necessary degrees or training. And as we are in our early 40s, the window for having roommates is firmly closed. Didn't hear from her much until a month ago when she called freaking out saying it was emergency and she had no one else to turn to. Her ex-roomie/boss had kicked her out a few months prior as she thought he may have assayed her. Now she was staying with a no-good of a cousin of a friend who was watching her every move, recording her with cameras, threatening to call the cops and kick her out. She did not feel safe, etc. Also, she is 6 months pregnant and has been trying to get aid. She cannot get into a women's shelter and she has been to a few doctors, but none will confirm she's pregnant, though she's visibly 6 months along according to her. I asked more about this, where she'd gone, what they told her, etc. But she said it was really weird and she was scared and thought maybe one of them was trying to steal her baby. I thought maybe they were trying to prevent her from getting aid and told her she could come stay with us for a bit as she had some money coming in the next months and just needed some place where she could stay temporarily. I also told her we are cramped here and in the process of finding a new place to live, so our money is tight and accommodations are temporary. She arrives early next morning and definitely not 6 months along, and no sign of baby bump. I'm thinking at this point that since it's her first baby and she's not clear who the father is, maybe she's only a month or 2 along. Okay, still going to help and still think she's pregnant, so we let her use our 8-year-old's room because we have no extra rooms and space is cramped. Entire visit, she wears tight clothing, takes frequent naps, baby is moving around a lot and makes her tired. Does yoga in our front yard facing busy local street. Sits on patio all day using my work phone because I said no. I would not pay to have her phone turned on. Every question we ask, who is dad of baby? Do you have further details about when your money is coming through? What happened with your ex-boss or roomie? All met with vague details and a lot of her saying she wants to change the subject because it's too hard for her to talk about it. She does and has done nothing to prepare for baby. We are very concerned for her maybe baby, so we give her info from a pregnant friend of a good doctor so she can go get checked out, and she continues to insist she's 6 months pregnant, and I am freaked that either she is and something is terribly wrong with baby, or she is less far along and needs to do better about managing her pregnancy. She books an appointment for the end of the week, and an interim keeps trying to make plans with us like she's on vacation. Like, we should get all dressed up and go to fancy dinner. When are we going to go do something fun? We should do something fun for her upcoming birthday, and she would like us to help plan. What else is there to do around here? The only time she talks about the baby, she talks about how she came here because she trusts us and wants us to help her raise her baby as she cannot do it alone. She uses a lot of green, asks for a beer in the first few days, talks about needing to dye her hair, no prenatal vitamins cause she says she doesn't need them because she's healthy. I cook our dinner every night. During day, my hubby makes sure our child is well fed with snacks and light meals. She asks several times, "Oh, you only cook dinner? You don't cook lunch or breakfast?" and asked my hubby several times as he was making food for our child if he could make her some food too. She never offers to make dinner or lunch or breakfast, and the time she asks me if I only make that one meal a day, I tell her yes, but she's welcome to make any meal she'd like and always welcome to any food in house. She says she cannot cook well. We started telling her she should get a job or some short-term work since she has no money or idea when her money is coming through. She says she will start applying but cannot get a W-2 job, so we tell her there are a number of places near us where we know for sure she can get 1099 work. She applies to none of them. She has a few interviews via Zoom for places too far for her to drive and keeps telling the interviewers she's 6 months along and doesn't want to lie about that. So it seems like she's purposely sabotaging these interviews so she will not get the position. I give her gas money to get to her doctor's appointment. She comes back and she cannot believe it, but the doctor says she's not pregnant. She doesn't know how that is possible. By the next day, she's fine, and it's like she never said she was pregnant. She's upbeat and back to asking what our plans are for weekend. We tell her we are setting up our camper and she can sleep in there, as we only let her sleep in our daughter's bed because we thought she was pregnant. She stays a few more days before coming to me midday and saying she's going back to her state as she has better job opportunities there and found a different sap to live with, who said she can help around the house to earn her keep until she gets a job and can afford to pay rent there for the room she will be staying in. I give her money for gas because at that point we are ridiculously uncomfortable and want her out. The kicker is that she says, well, since you guys don't want a roommate, it's better if I go. WTF? I'm at a loss for what her plan was apart from us to take care of her, give her a place to live, cook for her and pay her bills, because she asked again when she got here if I could get her a job with my place of employment. She obviously knew, as I had reiterated multiple times when she was here as before she got here, that we didn't want a roommate and don't need the headache and that financially things were tight and we cannot afford to support her. She said multiple times while here she was glad we would help her raise her baby, to which I said no, we would not. I feel bad about this, but I was very blunt and told her that while I'm glad for her, we have been going through rough times and don't have the emotional bandwidth to help raise a baby, that we would give her the help that we chose to and are able to give, but none of this would include helping her raise her baby or her living with us while raising her baby. It blows my mind because while she's a diva, she has never pulled crap like this when I knew her before. She obviously lied about being pregnant, so I would feel bad enough to take her in, but don't wear a skin-tight bodysuit to the grocery store if you're pretending to be pregnant. Entitled mother tries to steal my job. First off, I'm Swedish, so please excuse any typos. I work as pest control. It's a pretty fun job. I get to meet lots of people every day, and I see a variety of entitled people glad to see me, and sometimes people jumping with happiness that the Waspman has finally arrived. Yep, that's my favorite nickname. So you'll be just as surprised as I was when this story is not about that. I had just completed a good day's work, 2 red jobs, 2 bedbug jobs, and 4 wasp jobs. When I realize it's only 2 in the day, when I get off at 4:30, I head to the office and think about all the fun, sales and paperwork stuff I can do to ease out this month's paycheck. We usually get 5 to 10% commission on all jobs we do that are over $400. I park my car and start reaching for my pockets to lock the car, when suddenly I hear a child yelling, "I want that one!" I look over to see a kid running over with her Karen-looking mom right behind her. The mom keeps her distance, but the kid is really interested in the car. It's a brand new Volkswagen Caddy Moxie, so I understand her fully. I go up to the kid and start talking to her about the car. In Sweden, we don't have that norm that it's only indecent people talking to small kids, so it's socially acceptable. And start talking to her about what I do for a living, giving her the same speech I give all curious kids. She, of course, doesn't pay any attention to me and manages to open the passenger door. I carefully close the door again so I do not get her fingers in between by accident and tell her that's not okay till I feel a hand on my shoulder. It's the Karen mom. How dare you not let my kid get in the car? You're done with it. And now it's our turn to use it. I look stunned by what Karen had just said until I remember that our office is neighbors with a car rental company. Oh no, ma'am. As you can see, this car has my company's logo on it. We're neighbors of the car rent, I said before I was abruptly interrupted. This is outrageous! I demand to talk to your boss. You cannot just refuse a customer, she says snarkily, getting so close to me I can smell the free coffee the rental place offers. Listen, I say as calmly as possible, trying not to fold this woman's clothes while she's still in them. This is property of pest control, not car rental place. As you can see if you compare the logo above the door you just walked out of, the logo on my car, and the logo on my clothes. Without even double checking the frowns, she says, "You're lying! I demand you get your manager." Fed up at this point, I say, okay, and go in and grab the boss of the rental place. We had lunch several times before and I had even sold him some stuff off the clock. When we get out, I see the entitled mom is in my driver's seat and the little kid is trying to jump in the passenger seat. I reach for my pocket when I realize that the keys that's for a brand new van containing more poison in it than is needed to unalive an entire football stadium is in the bloody van. I run up to the car and lucky for me, the stupid lady doesn't know that on newer cars you don't need to put the key in an ignition and tries to search around the car where to put the keys in. I forcefully drag her out of the car when she does the typical drama thing and go entirely limp, as to make it seem like I'm using way too much force and I am hurting her. As soon as I get out, she starts crying on the ground, yelling that I broke her arm. The boss of the rental place comes around to our side and starts shouting at the Karen, telling her, "And this is why you were kicked out of our store. You cannot just steal people's cars." Suddenly, she's amazingly jolted back to her normal self and explained, "I'm calling the police, telling them you two just hurt me." We just laughed and pointed at a camera pointing square on that piece of parking lot. Defeated, she stood up, grabbed her kid, and muttered away, all while the little kid was crying that she didn't get to go in my car. Lovely day! Well, I don't live in Sweden, I live in Finland, which is a neighboring country, and to meet Karen here is a very rare treat. And this story is from one of my favorite posters on Entitled Parents subreddit, and he's from Sweden, which is literally next to Finland. So I just wonder, does Sweden have more Karens? Y'all, we got to 200 subscribers! I'm so happy! My goal for July was to get to 250 subscribers, and we are literally just 39 subscribers away from that. Please subscribe. You will make my day. And come back tomorrow because I release videos every day. I'll sue you for almost unaliving my son. If it wasn't obvious by now, I work with pest control. One of the best jobs I've ever had. One early day last summer, I had to go to a town 1 hour away to get rid of a wasp nest. As per protocol, I call the customer, Karen, 30 minutes before arrival to ensure that they're home and they have time to put on some clothes or whatnot. My call goes after a while to voicemail, where I inform her that I will be there in 30 minutes. I keep driving, and as per protocol, I try to phone her again when I am 15, 10, and 5 minutes away. For my company to legitimize a no-show on the customer's part, we also have to go and knock on the door, even though 9 out of 10 times, no one is home if they do not answer their phones. But when I got there and knocked, I was greeted by Karen. Now, in my past story about a Karen, I explained that she had that obvious Karen look and even the same hairstyle. But this time, I was greeted by a really large woman who resembled more of a Honey Boo Boo's mom. "Who are you and what do you want?" She almost shouted, even though we stood barely 2 meters apart. "Oh, I am from pest control. I have a report about wasp problem on your back porch," I say, trying not to gag from the odor seeping out from Karen's house. "Why didn't you call beforehand? That's awfully rude," she exclaims, showing her green-brown teeth. "I did. See here," I say and show her the phone. "Impossible. I didn't hear my phone ring." "Oh well, since you're here now, go on with it." I nod as she closes the door, quite thankful not having to go through the house. I gear up with my suit, spray and puffer full of Vicam, a poisonous type of powder that also dries out your body, and hat for the back. Backside of the house is even more dirtier than the front side, with huge piles of broken and old toys sprayed around the yard. But after a bit of professional-looking parkour and maneuvering, I get to the porch. Right on the pillar, there is a huge nest. I just spray it down and then insert the tip of my puffer and spray in some Vicam. Textbook. I maneuver myself back to the front of the house and ring the bell again. This time, I do not have time to take a step back. Karen was probably watching me through every single window, which punched backwards when she violently threw up the door. "I'm all done now. Here is a receipt for all the chemicals I used in case any of your children or yourself should get sick. Also, please note that it will take 1 to 2 days before they are all gone, since it's a slow-acting poison," I inform. She exclaims as she takes the receipt and shuts the door. Weird, I thought. But I was used to meeting antisocial people, so I just shrugged and went on my way. This was 9:45. Almost 10 hours after I was at her place, and 3 hours after I got off work, my work phone rings. Since I don't usually save my customers' numbers, I thought that maybe it was someone ringing because of something I tried to sell them earlier, so not to let my commission slip away, I answer the phone. "Hello and welcome to X Pest Control. My name is OP. How can I help you?" "You're incompetent and I will sue you for almost unaliving my son!" a loud voice said, but I did manage to match it to Karen's voice. "What has happened? Is he alright?" I asked, knowing that if he ingested the poison, he would get really sick and could pass away if he didn't get to an emergency room. "You said that the wasps were gone. They were not," she snarked. "What?" I say, confused and a bit pissed. "I told you that the poison takes 1 to 2 days before everything is gone." "No, you did not. So I sent my 9-year-old son to remove the nest. He got stung 14 times because of you!" she shouted, almost deafening me. Look, ma'am, I informed you to leave it alone for 2 days. And even if I forgot, it says the exact same thing on the receipt that I handed you." "No, it doesn't." "Yes, it does. Go have a look." "I'm holding it now, and I don't..." It goes quiet, and then just a beep to indicate that the phone call has disconnected. We didn't hear any more from her, and I never got a summons for court either. Shame. Oh, maybe OP have met my long-lost aunt. Because this lady really reminds me of my own father. He doesn't get aggressive like that, but he's so bad in following instructions and paying attention. He's in his 60s, so sometimes internet thing can be challenging for him, so I often help him with shopping or booking tickets or hotel, something like that. So recently, he asked me to help him buy some meds for his dog, which I ordered and then messaged him like, "Hey dad, I've ordered the pills. They will be $50. Half an hour later, he calls me back and he's like, "What are you talking about? What pills?" "Pills for your dog?" "Oh, why so expensive? It used to be $25. And I explained to him that, well, you asked me to order 2 packs, yada yada yada. And he's like, "Oh yeah, right." So I'm not sure if he's just getting older and I am in denial about that, or he just doesn't really care. Not going to pay overtime? Think again. I was discussing this sub with a good friend, and he said, "Boy, have I got a story that'll fit." It wasn't his story, but his brother's, and I sat with him and got the details. Buckle up, it's a good one, and a long one. Let's call him Bob. Bob has been fiddling with computers since he was a kid and knows them pretty well. As with most IT people, he's moved from job to job. The employer he worked for was a service distribution company, and there were 2 IT employees. The company was located in Ontario, Canada. About 3 years ago, Bob's employer decided to modernize their software. They had separate programs for dispatching, for inventory, for payroll and finances, and it was complicated moving information from one program to the other. They decided to get an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning program. And Bob recommended one that he knew inside out from a previous employer. For those of you who don't know, an ERP program handles everything. Purchase orders, sales, inventory, personnel, vendors, customers, all of it. You can run a report and find out which customer has bought the most part ABC in the last year, which salesman has improved his numbers the most, which vendor has the fastest delivery time, which shipper packed the most orders. Everyone in the company used the ERP program, but it was very complicated, and they used the aspects of it that related to their position. For example, the receiver would accept a shipment, verify the quantity, confirm it was received, and the inventory stats would be available to the salespeople if they wanted to look up how many were on hand. The receiver didn't care what the price was or who the vendor was, he just did his job. Bob was run ragged during the implementation process, but he managed to train most of the employees on their aspects, and after a few months, everything was running fairly smoothly. Bob still got tickets for tweaks in the operation of the software and occasional hardware IT issues. Then the company decided to expand their footprint and was marketing into different time zones. That messed things up. Atlantic Canada is 90 minutes early, so if someone sent an email or an order at 8 a.m. their time, it would arrive at 6:30 Ontario time. Pacific Canada is 3 hours late, so an email sent at 3 p.m. Vancouver time would arrive at 6 p.m. This stretched out the day, so many staff came in early and worked late. Bob would arrive at 8 a.m. and there would be people that demanded his immediate assistance and were annoyed that he didn't respond instantly, even though their request was submitted before his start time. Same with the late in the day. His phone would ring at dinner time with people that wanted help right now. They decided to stagger his and his IT colleagues' shift times. Bob would start at 6 a.m. and work till 2:30, and his colleague would start at 10:30 and work till 7 p.m. Bob's colleague had kids and refused the shift change. The employer insisted. The colleague quit. That meant that Bob was the only person in the IT department. The employer said they would look to hire a new IT guy, but they had trouble finding one that knew the ERP system, and they were offering well under a market value salary. Bob asked for a raise and was denied. Then he wanted overtime, and the employer told him that as an IT specialist, he was exempt from overtime laws in Ontario. Bob looked it up, and the employer was correct. This went on for some time, and he knew lots of IT people socially. They told him what the company was offering, and Bob knew that they wouldn't find another tech. Things went downhill from there. Bob would get chewed out if he missed a call or an email, no matter what time it came in. He had to train new hires in the ERP system, as well as take care of the hardware. He asked repeatedly for better compensation and was denied, so he planned to get a new job. Now, here's the revenge. Bob had access to the entirety of the ERP program. When a user signed in, the time was logged. And even if they didn't sign out after 15 minutes, it would log them out anyway. Everyone in the company was on salary, and many of them came in early and stayed late. Ontario labor law states that even salaried workers are entitled to overtime after 44 hours a week, unless they were managers or supervisors. So Bob jumped into the program and ran a report for each employee that wasn't a manager, all the way back to when the ERP program was started. Then he reached out to an employment lawyer and got the okay to refer employees to him. Bob lined up another job, and after he left, every employee in the company got an email with an Excel sheet showing the hours they had put in past 44 hours a week. The subject line said, you're legally entitled to overtime pay. In the body of the email was the lawyer's name. The crap hit the fan. Almost every employee authorized the lawyer to negotiate with the company on their behalf. And the company had to pay a ton of money. All the company had to do was pay Bob for the extra work he put in. Instead, they had to pay almost everyone. I do not employ anyone. I am an employee myself. But if someday I start my company and I employ people, the first lesson that I learned going through Reddit: do not mess with IT guys. Their power is beyond imaginable. Y'all, we got to 200 subscribers! I'm so happy! My goal for July was to get to 250 subscribers, and we are literally just 39 subscribers away from that. Please subscribe. You will make my day. And come back tomorrow, because I release videos every day. eBay mishandling stolen equipment, or don't mess with the postal inspectors. I work with a company that times races. Running, cycling, triathlon, etc. The owner is a guy named John, who works at a race timing company. Both made up names. At a race, some equipment was stolen. It's expensive equipment, but extremely specific. Maybe 200 people in the US use this system. And the components cost about $1,000 each, for a total of about $4K USD. About a month later, the stolen equipment popped up on eBay. John reached out to the seller via eBay and asked that his stolen equipment be returned. The seller was a jerk, as might be expected from someone selling stolen equipment would be. He said, there is no way you know it's your equipment. The thing is, photo number 3 showed one of the boxes with a printed label on it. Race timing company, John owner, John's phone number. It literally had his name on it. So John escalated to eBay to at least prevent his stolen equipment from being sold. eBay totally dropped the ball. They bought the seller's story that he had bought it at a mail auction for lost mail, which made no sense since the seller info was the same town where the equipment was stolen. The seller also tried to claim that John had no way of proving that it was his stolen equipment. Except, it had his name and phone number on it. John had no evidence that the seller hadn't bought it on a mail auction and ruled against John. So John hatched a plan. He did what any rational person would do. He purchased his own stolen equipment back using an employee's name and asked that it be shipped USPS. He was right next to a post office, he said. That's when the pro-revenge comes into play. It is a felony to knowingly traffic stolen items. So John waited patiently as his equipment was marked shipped and ended up arriving at his coworker's house in another state for good measure. And John called the postal inspection service. He had the seller's full name, address, the proof that he knew it was stolen. He had police reports, pictures of his name on the equipment, matching serial numbers, transcripts of him informing the seller that it was stolen, etc. The USPS inspectors knocked on the guy's door 2 days later and reportedly found numerous stolen items. He was charged with almost a dozen federal felonies, including felony theft, trafficking stolen goods across the state lines, and lying to federal agents. And to top it all off, John filed a stolen goods complaint with eBay since he had tons of proof that he had been sold stolen goods. So he got his money back, minus shipping. I expect the person who was dealing the stolen goods to be evil, but why be so stupid? If you get caught, I don't know, well, if not apologize, say that, oh my god, I bought it in a pawn shop, or I got it from a friend, or I don't know, make something up. Don't just be, oh, you cannot prove anything. Well, most likely they can. But on the other hand, I'm happy that he was caught. And now he will not do any more evil. Am I the butthole because I didn't tell my date we were going Dutch? I recently went on a date with a guy that ended really oddly, so I need some outside eyes on the whole thing. I, 27 female, went on a date with a friend of a friend, Jake, 31 male. I had suggested coffee, but when he mentioned the restaurant he wanted to go to, I agreed. It is a nice place and I have been meaning to go there. I figured worst case scenario, I would get a chance to check out the food. We actually had a nice time. I ordered drinks, appetizers, my main and dessert. He only had water and his main. He tried a bit of my appetizers but said they weren't his thing. When the bill came, I made sure to tell the waitress that we had separate checks as this was our first date, and I always pay for myself on a first date. I emphasized first because I thought it went well. He seemed like a genuine and pleasant guy. I was looking forward to seeing him again. I heard from my friend Jake thought I was kind of a bot for not telling him I was paying for my own meal. The reason he only had water and the main was because he thought he was going to be paying a bunch of money for my food and drinks. I guess he was upset because he would have liked to order more, but our bill together was over $200. With tip, I paid $145. I can understand why he would be upset, but I don't think that's on me. I always pay for myself on the first date, like I said, unless it's coffee. I cannot be the only woman who pays for themselves, can I? Am I the butthole? No, you are not. And as we can all tell, there will be no second date. And I'm glad, because he seems weird. If you cannot communicate about such small things like, hey, I don't have that much money on me, or okay, you're insecure about sharing that you do not have a lot of money on you, that's all right. You can just ask, hey, just for me to know, just for us to establish this, how are we going to pay? Am I paying for you? Are you paying for me? Are we paying for each other? What's the plan? But he cannot do that. So I guess he will not be able to communicate about bigger things, right? So yeah, no second date for him, girly. Y'all, we got to 200 subscribers! I'm so happy! My goal for July was to get to 250 subscribers, and we are literally just 39 subscribers away from that. Please subscribe. You will make my day. And come back tomorrow, because I release videos every day. Am I the butthole for telling my mother-in-law she should have tried being a good mom if she wanted the rewards at her son's wedding? My brother-in-law, my husband's younger brother, had me and my husband act as parents of the groom at his wedding. My sister-in-law, their younger sister, and mine and my husband's children rounded out the groom's side at his wedding. My mother-in-law, their mom, her husband, and the children she shares with her husband were there, but they were not counted among the immediate family and were not seated with us at any point. My husband became the father figure to his brother when their father passed away. My husband was 10, his brother was 2. My mother-in-law was pregnant with sister-in-law at the time. My husband became the head of the household. Mother-in-law checked out and she would get angry at my husband for not doing better. The day my husband lost his father, he also lost his mother. She was and continues to be so cold to him. She expected so much of a 10-year-old and criticized him heavily in the years that followed. He was supposed to get amazing grades, keep the house in order, raise his siblings, help his mom out whenever she wanted to, work when he was old enough, and do so without even complaining or turning to her for help. His grades suffered immediately because of all he went through. Until my husband turned 18, he did 99% of the raising of his younger siblings. They bonded with him in a very special way because of this, and I was his friend, then girlfriend at the time, and I helped. So they bonded well with me as well. When my husband was 16, mother-in-law announced she was pregnant and moved in with this guy she married in Vegas. Nobody knew anything beforehand. At that point, her and my husband's relationship worsened. Between brother-in-law and sister-in-law not being bonded with her at all, and her trying to take back over some parenting, but them rejecting her, and my husband not caring to include his half-sibling in the parenting he did, it made for a very big mess. She wished my husband was not alive, she wished she had got rid of him when she was pregnant, and did all this in front of me and his siblings. When he moved out, she did all she could to stop the siblings seeing each other, but brother-in-law and sister-in-law acted out until she gave in. They had a lot of extended sleepovers with us. My husband attempted to win custody of them when we settled enough. but mother-in-law household was financially secure, so he was denied. But it never changed the fact that brother-in-law and sister-in-law wanted us, but mostly him, the brother/father they knew best of all. Mother-in-law and her family were not at mine and my husband's wedding. But as mentioned, she was at brother-in-law wedding because he and sister-in-law maintained some contact. In the 2 weeks since the wedding, I ran into mother-in-law at a grocery store. She confronted me. She complained about how unrewarding the wedding was when she was treated like she is not groom's mom. Said it was my husband's fault. I told her she should have tried being a good mom if she wanted the rewards at her son's weddings. I walked away right after saying this because my husband and I have her blocked everywhere. She cannot reach me, but she has been giving brother-in-law and sister-in-law a hard time over what I said and calling me a pot stirrer. Am I the butthole? I think this one is the easiest, not the butthole. Why have children if you cannot be bothered to take care of them? If you have this new shiny husband, you give up your children, you move away, you have your new beautiful family, and then you're like, well, you do not respect me enough. Oh, go to heck, Karen. Am I the butthole for going to my wife's book club and giving her the kids? I don't know if I was a butt or not. My wife has a book club that meets up every Sunday at her friend's home. It is supposed to be a lunch thing, and she always tells me she will be home around 3. Every single time she has been late. The worst was getting home at 7 p.m. They went on a shopping outing. I have talked to her multiple times, and I have expressed it is disrespectful. I'm fine watching the kids, 8 and 10. What I am not fine with is her lying to me about what time she will get home. It also just makes my life harder, since she usually doesn't get home in time for me to hang out with my own friends, so I have to cancel. We both work and the kids are in school. I am an active parent. I don't have a scheduled get out of home time like my wife does. So yesterday, I made it very clear that she needs to be home before 4 at the latest because my uncle is in town and we are supposed to grab dinner before he heads back to his home state. Well, she told me she would be at home at 3, and at 3:45 she wasn't home. I drove to her friend's house with the kids. When her friend opens the door, it is around 4:15 now. My wife was there, and I handed off the kids to her. I told her I am going to meet my uncle and didn't answer any calls during dinner. I got home and we got in a huge argument. She thinks I'm a huge butt for humiliating her in front of her friends. I told her this wouldn't have happened if she just came home on time. You know, on Am I the Butthole subreddit, there are usually 3 verdicts. Butthole, not a butthole, and everybody sucks. So I guess this one is everybody sucks. First thing I did not like is when the husband says he was babysitting the kids. No, you're not. You're being parent to them. You're not a babysitter, you're a father. But of course, it's such a weird behavior from OP's wife. She's literally behaving like a teenager who's like, yeah, mommy, I'll be at home at 3. But then, oops, something happened. Oh, it's 7 and I'm home. Well, I'm so sorry. You can ground me. Would I be a butthole for excluding my sister-in-law's kids from coming on our boat? I, 43 male, have 2 kids, both 12 females, with my wife, who is 42. So since it is summer, we've been going on a boat we own for the past few weeks. And last time, we offered to take my wife's sister's kids with us. And that was a complete disaster. First, sister-in-law didn't inform me that her kids, 9 and 7, are pretty seasick. And they threw up on my back, but that was the least of the problems. They kept trying to jump into the water. For some reason, completely ignored water skiing instructions, which I explained 6 to 8 times, and almost pushed my daughters off the boat while we were moving as a joke. When we got back, sister-in-law lectures me about how I could let her kids get seasick, which, remember, I wasn't aware of. Lucky for them, my wife carries those white pill things. Then the kids complain I didn't let them do anything, which is untrue, because they gave water skiing a try and they hated it. So then they did tubing, which they liked. That resulted in another telling off from my sister-in-law. I'm planning on going again this weekend, and I'm planning on taking my own sister's kids, my sister and her husband, and my wife's way older niece of another sibling, who is 20. Would I be a butthole? My wife thinks that it is kind of mean, even though I really don't want to deal with that again. Well, I guess if your wife thinks it's kinda mean, she can either talk to your sister or take them on the boat alone, or go somewhere else. Because your boat, your rules. Why do you have to be nice to your sister-in-law, taking care of them for a day, giving her a break, entertaining them, and all you get in return is berating? Ugh, she can take care of her own kids if she's like that, right? Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. You can also watch this awesome video or that awesome playlist. See you next time!